Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about generators. Generators, yeah, human design. This is a very important subject that needs to be discussed. One, because majority of humans on earth right now are generators, but I feel like I also need to talk about it because there's not really much on YouTube about what it's like to be one. Or the internet. So I feel like through giving, my perspective of living, as a generator, it can almost serve as, therapeutic for the next person who's watching who may feel seen. So I kind of want to start from the beginning. I just want to give you a bit of my experience growing up. I do feel like generators are going to know from the get-go that something is very different about them. I came into this world with a ton of energy. It was almost like that endless battery that would never go out. And I do remember, people making comments about my energy. That was just the first thing. And I don't know, I was made to feel very unique about that. Like no one had energy like me. I did also feel like I could pick up. I almost had like a sixth sense. Generators are antennas, okay? They're like an antenna. They're like a radio wave. And, we have this ability to pick up everything around us. We don't have to even really interact with you. We can know who you are, what you're about. We can even see, sometimes depression on people. We can see what they're hiding. We can feel when something's off. I just remember at a very young age feeling everything and having this heightened intuition about people who maybe even my parents knew, like, because they knew them better, they were their friends, but I knew something was off with them. I could tell. The other thing I felt like from a very young age was that there was this constant, always everyone needing me. Everyone from my parents to other friends. I was always like a mediator or, the one that people would vent to or want advice from. That's the other thing that I felt like was happening like all the time. I did grow to start to become, I started to put up kind of like walls. I was trying to create boundaries, but I noticed people would always break them. And it was interesting because people could do whatever they wanted around me, but I could never establish a boundary. I used to get, really attacked for that. Okay. That is going to be one thing as a generator you're going to have to become very clear about is boundaries. Don't worry, that will come in time. You will get to a point where you've had enough and you will set them naturally, okay? The other thing I felt like was happening, this was a big one. I found this to be the most uncomfortable, was that people would always look at me anywhere I went. It didn't matter if it was like a restaurant and I would walk in and people would stop eating, like they'd be midair with their forks. People who were with me noticed. I remember when I used to have boyfriends, before I was married, they would hate that. They would be like, what's going on? Some of them, most people would tell me, oh, it's just because you're a pretty girl. And I was like, no, there's something more to this. It wasn't always that I was in full makeup or I looked the greatest. I just seemed to, for some reason, affect everybody I would come in contact with. Whether it was at the grocery store, whether it was at the gas station, whether it was just walking through a park. For some reason, I was never able to go under the radar. And I did grow to hate attention. I would purposely, try to avoid it. I would not even, it got so bad, guys. Sometimes I wouldn't even walk through entrances like in the front. I would try to see if I could go to like a back door. I did feel like I had this polarizing effect when I did come into contact. That was just being seen. But when I would come into contact with people, I felt like people would become they'd become different. They would become different. I'd see them talking to somebody else, but then when they would get to me, they would either get really nervous, they would trip on their words, or sometimes you may find this has happened to some of you, you would get this like eye locking where they'd just be staring at you and you'd be like, you wouldn't know what to do. So that was another thing that I felt like that was really hard for me to deal with. That would be really interesting if you resonate with that. But as we know, as Dolores Cannon has said, generators can walk through a mall and they can affect everybody they walk by, whether they're conscious of it or not. Some, I don't think were as conscious, but there were a lot that were very consciously aware. But it never made any sense to me, that is, as to why this was happening. Another thing that I noticed was as I started to get older, especially after the age of, I want to say 25, I would start to have this burnout. It would always come from getting super busy. That's the weird thing too about generators. They usually lead very busy lives. They've got usually, more than a few things going on at the same time, but I would get burnt out. And I feel like as generators too, we also have this like wanting to succeed mentality and get things done. But there's like this off balance with how much we can have on our plate with how much, within our mind we really want to, do. So I would experience burnout, and it would come from a few things, mainly two things: either putting too much on our plate, my plate, because that's the other thing is generators have a hard time saying no. Okay. We just want to, make people happy for the most part. Okay. Especially if, you're close to us. So saying no is a really hard thing. But it would come from that, or it would be like people in general. And it started to get so bad as I got older that I had to literally start cutting people that I really cared about out of my life because they were just bringing way too much drama, too much heavy energy. And that's the thing, as a generator, you're going to find that you are going to, around the age of 20, start to elevate in frequency. You are on a mission, okay? You are definitely on a mission. You are a second wave volunteer, so let's not forget that. You're here to assist in, the uprising of humanity. So you start to kind of like get on this journey, whether you want it or you think you consciously want it or not. And then you start to realize like, okay, there's a lot happening that's not good for me. And then you start to feel like, okay, you're going to have to remove things. But I would get so burnt out from people if they were not filling my cup in a very healthy way. If I didn't feel like, they were there for me for the right reasons, like I had to start cutting people out of my life. And that was very difficult, but it was very necessary because, again, as a second wave volunteer, you're not really here for yourself. You're here for the ascension, and you're a big part to play in that, which I'll get to at the, a little further down in this video. But yeah, I would start to get burnt out and I would get so sick sometimes. I mean, it would manifest, in my body. I'm not saying that I am going to be, diagnosing any of you. Do not take this video as, a diagnosis or a health diagnosis, but this is just my perspective. I used to get like ill. I would get like migraines. I would get heat. I would overheat. Okay. I would overheat when I was around crowds or I was around people that, again, I felt like were extremely negative or not, for me. I would get hives, rashes like on my body. I would literally break out in a rash. I would not be able to get out of bed some days. It just like the list would go on and on and on. So I just found that as I was getting older, I was having less tolerance for being super, super active all the time, okay? Because I did used to be able to function with like hardly no sleep before, but as I was getting older, I was feeling like I was gonna have to slow down, or it was gonna literally take me out. And then there were certain people who drained me, people who were taking from me, people who wanted more than I can give, than I could have given, demanding. Like these were things I was experiencing as well. So that's what was happening with me in my 20s. When I got to my 30s, that's when another whole layer to all of this started to unfold, and I couldn't work anymore. I found that there was a lot of toxicity coming through my workplaces. The demand, again, this demand that is always there for generators. I don't know if it's that people think we can handle it, or that we just look like, we can, or we have a lot of energy. But I just started to realize like, I can't be a workhorse. I can't be a workhorse. I can't do this anymore. And again, at this moment in time, I'm starting to realize I'm on a journey, okay? So you will also find too, as a generator, you'll have multiple awakenings. I've had 4, okay? I've had 4 in my lifetime. That's a lot, okay? But yeah, I was starting to realize like, I couldn't work anymore. And it's not that I couldn't work, because obviously you have to work. You're on earth. You have to find a way to make money. But I just couldn't do work that didn't, like, again, fill my cup, fill my soul. And this is what you are, generators. You are an antenna. You are, energy. You're creative. You're meant to be. You usually, as a generator, you're gonna have to find something that's creative. You're gonna have to find something that fuels your soul, but is also simultaneously, in a way, helping others. So I'm not saying you can't work a 9 to 5, but you'll find as a generator, you will somehow fit the two together. You will be creative, and then you'll be helping others at the same time. So that's when I had a lot of transformation within my work. This is when I got the call to go on YouTube. I started my other channel. I didn't really know what was going on, why I was being called to do it. I found out pretty early on why that was. People did react to me. They reacted very well to me. I'm really appreciative for the feedback that I've had from the general public. It's just been beautiful. It really has. But yeah, you're gonna have to start finding something where you're able to kind of work on your own terms. You will realize you're a generator. You will understand, well, you may not realize you're a generator, but you're gonna understand that the burnout, the not being able to, be a workhorse is there. So you're gonna have to find something, usually are in and around the self-employed area, or, a job in which you can, it's not gruesome, the hours, okay? There are a lot of generators I find who do stick to part-time work because they just cannot commit. And it's not your fault. And that's the thing too, is that it's really hard because, as you get older and you start to, whether you're aware of yourself being a generator or not, once you start like establishing those boundaries and just saying like, I can't give like that much of myself, you could get kind of, labeled as lazy, and it's kind of unfair. But this is something I also noticed that started happening to me in my 30s. Now, the interesting thing is I stumbled upon randomly, but not really randomly, right? Because we know nothing is random. Dolores Cannon. And I just started listening to her. Wasn't really looking for, information on, the 3 waves of volunteer, just came upon it. When I heard about the second wave of volunteers, that's when everything clicked for me, especially the part where she said about them walking through crowds and affecting everybody. Not only that, the part where she mentions one of her clients, or her clients in general who are generators, where, they want a purpose, but they're not supposed to really have a purpose. They're just here to be. Everything started clicking for me. So I've gotten to a point in my life right now where I would rather be aligned than burnt out. Being burnt out for a generator is never going to be good. It can become very dangerous, okay? Very dangerous for a generator to be burnt out. You will, I just want to say, regardless of, where you think you're at in your journey, I just want you to know you're going to figure this out. You have guides, you have, God, you have your higher self. They will get you to where you need to be. With all of this, you will find, you are going to just constantly be moving in the direction of, what is going to be best for you. Whether that be that you can't be around certain people, whether that be that you say no, whether that be that you can't do that 9-to-5 job. And, the beautiful thing about all of this is that, you get this faith, something happens when you start getting aligned. It all starts working out for you more than it actually did when you tried. So that's the beautiful thing about generators. I don't find that they have to try. They just have to be, but aligned, okay? Not be burnt out. But anytime I used to try before, try hard, it never worked out. Just being, doing what you feel guided to do every day, making, money off of what you love to do, saying no, these will bring in so much blessings. You will be actually amazed. So lastly, before I end this video, I want to talk a little bit about why you chose to come here at this time as a second wave volunteer. Second wave volunteers, they anchor through presence, not force. So just by being, setting boundaries, being, your truest authentic self, doing what you love, you uplift others. You also show people how to live in the new earth. We are the new earth builders. And just by being and doing what we love, we are, showing others a better way to live, and breaking them out of, the patterns of sustainability and the matrix. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. Let me know if you did. Let me know your experience. I would love to know from one generator to another. So have a wonderful day. I wish you all the best.